Picture a fund manager sliding a term sheet across the table. You pay 5.95% of every paycheck above $3,500. Your employer pays the same again. You cannot withdraw early, and you cannot leave the full balance to your kids. In exchange, an inflation-indexed check for life, plus disability and survivor coverage bolted on. That product is the Canada Pension Plan, and today I am stress testing the deal like a skeptical investor. I am Nathan. The evidence comes from the Office of the Chief Actuary's 30-second CPP report, CPP Investments, published performance, and CANNEX annuity pricing for what replacing that check privately would cost. The question on the table is the one every do-it-yourself investor eventually asks. Would the money have grown bigger in your own hands? The honest answer has layers. Let me read the terms in full before I run any countermath. The contribution in 2026 is 11.9% of every dollar you earn between $3,500 and $74,600. Split 5.95% from you and 5.95% from your employer. Above $74,600 and up to $85,000, CPP2 kicks in at 4% each side, another 8% combined. The employee-only maximum contribution in 2026 is $4,230.45 for the base, plus $416 for the second tier, for a top of $4,646.45. Your employer matches every cent of that. So the total money leaving payroll on your behalf tops out at $9,292.90 for a maximum earner in the year 2026 to 2027. In exchange at age 65, the maximum monthly check in 2026 is $1,507.65 or $18,091.80 a year. Indexed to inflation, paid for life. The average new pension at 65 is $803.76 a month, because almost nobody contributes at the ceiling for 39 straight years. There is a disability rider worth up to $1,673.24 monthly. There is a survivor benefit of 60% of the retirement pension for a spouse over 65. There is a one-time death benefit of $2,500 flat. You cannot cash it out. You cannot leave the pool of capital to your kids. You cannot borrow against it. It is illiquid, non-transferable, and mandatory. Those are the terms. Read straight. Now the do-it-yourself objection, given at full volume, because this deserves an honest hearing. The math is uncomfortable. If you took the combined 11.9% of pensionable earnings and dropped it into a low-fee equity index portfolio every year for 40 years, at the long-run global equity return of roughly 7% real, the final balance eclipses what CPP will hand you. Let me make it concrete. A worker maxing out at the 2026 ceiling contributes about $8,460 a year combined. Index that to wage growth over a career, compounded at 7% real for 40 years, and you land somewhere between $1.7 million and $2.1 million in today's dollars. Apply the 4% safe withdrawal rule to that number, and you are drawing $68,000 to $84,000 a year, indexed. CPP at 65 tops at around $18,091.80 a year. On paper, the private pot pays roughly 4 times the government check and hands the residual to your estate. That is the objection at full strength. I am not dodging it. If you compare 11.9% of career earnings compounded in a passive index portfolio against CPP's replacement rate, CPP looks like a bad deal. The Fraser Institute has run these numbers publicly. Their estimate for anyone born after 1971 is an inflation-adjusted internal rate of return of roughly 2.1% on CPP contributions. For workers born between 1955 and 1971, the estimate is 3%. For the earliest cohorts, born 1905 to 1914 and retiring in the 1970s, the real return was as high as 27% because those retirees paid in for a fraction of a career at a 3.6% contribution rate and drew a full pension. That is the ledger the objection points to, and every honest analysis has to acknowledge it exists. Now the counters. I am going to price every one of them because the objection above assumes you get to keep the full 11.9%, and that is the first thing that falls apart under scrutiny. The employer match does not exist outside the plan. Half of that 11.9%, 5.95%, is money your employer sends to CPP as a legislated payroll cost. If CPP disappeared tomorrow, there is no honest reason to assume your employer would hand you that money as a raise. Some might, most would not. The economic literature on wage incidence is contested, but the practical reality is clear. A hypothetical opt-out that assumes you get to invest the full 11.9% forfeits half the contribution the day it starts. Now you are compounding 5.95% of earnings, not 11.9%, and the final balance drops by roughly half. That $1.7 to $2.1 million pot is now closer to $850,000 to $1.05 million. The 4% safe withdrawal drops to $34,000 to $42,000 a year. Still more than CPP's $1,891.80, but the gap has shrunk dramatically. Now price the annuity itself. The CPP check is not just an income stream, it is an inflation-indexed life annuity backed by the federal government, and replacing that privately is expensive. The CANNEX pay index for a 65-year-old male in Canada as of April 2026 sits around 7.76%. That is a nominal life annuity. To replicate CPP's inflation indexing, you buy an indexed annuity, and those start lower, typically 4.5 to 5.5%. Because the insurer is pricing in the escalation. Do the math. To generate $18,091.80 a year of indexed lifetime income at a 5% payout, you need roughly $360,000 of premium. To generate an equivalent joint life indexed income, once you factor the 60% survivor benefit, you are looking at closer to $400,000 to $450,000. Subtract that annuity equivalent value from your private pot, and the do-it-yourself advantage keeps shrinking. Now the disability rider. CPP's disability pension pays up to $1,673.24 a month if you cannot work. That is $20,078.88 a year indexed, paid until 65. Replicating that privately means a long-term disability insurance policy. For a 35-year-old professional, a benefit to 65 policy paying $1,500 a month with a 90-day elimination period runs roughly $50 to $100 a month depending on occupation class, health, and rider selection. Over a 30-year career, that is between $18,000 and $36,000 in premiums paid, none of it invested. If you are a tradesperson or a physically demanding occupation class, the premium is materially higher. Price this against the do-it-yourself case honestly, and it eats another slice of the private portfolio's headroom. Now, the survivor rider. CPP pays a surviving spouse 60% of the retirement pension after 65, on a maxed out benefit that is roughly $10,855 a year to your widow or widower for the rest of their life. Replicating that outside the plan is a joint life indexed annuity or a permanent life insurance policy, and neither is cheap. Assume another $150 a month in insurance premium equivalent over a career, and you are looking at another $54,000 of pre-tax cash that never sees an index fund. Now the failure modes, and this is where the do-it-yourself case tends to hand wave the private portfolio math, assumes flawless execution over 40 years. The behavioral literature is brutal on this. Retail investors persistently underperform the funds they own by 1 to 3% a year through poorly timed buying and selling, panic selling and drawdowns, and concentration mistakes. Sequence of returns risk in the decade before retirement can permanently impair a portfolio if a bear market lands in the wrong year. CPP has none of these risks. The check arrives whether the TSX is up 30% or down 40% that year. Price the behavioral gap at even 1.5% a year across the career, and the $1.7 million private pot shrinks to closer to $1.1 million. Price the sequence risk on top, and it can drop further. Now the cohort ledger, because this is where the honest verdict starts to differ by generation. The 32nd actuarial report on the Canada Pension Plan, as at 31st December 2024 and tabled in 2026, assumes a long-run real return of 3.69% on base CPP assets and 3.27% on the additional CPP layer. CPP Investments has actually delivered a 10-year annualized net return of 8.8% as of March 2026, well ahead of the actuarial assumption, with net assets of $793.3 billion. But the return CPP Investments earns is not the return you earn. Your return is the internal rate of return on your contributions against the pension you eventually collect, and that has been declining for decades by design. Anyone born in the 1905 to 1914 window and retiring in the 1970s earned a real return north of 20%, some as high as 39.1%. Those retirees paid in for a fraction of a career at a 3.6% contribution rate and collected a full pension for life. That was a windfall, plain and simple, and every generation since has been paying for it. Anyone born between 1955 and 1971 lands closer to a 3% real internal rate of return. Anyone born after 1971, working today under the fully phased-in 5.95% employee rate, lands around 2.1% real. That 2.1% is the honest number for a current 30-something contributor. It is a mediocre return in a vacuum, but it is the return on a product that includes an indexed lifetime annuity, a disability rider, and the survivor rider, none of which come free in the private market. Price the riders into the private counter portfolio and the gap narrows again. Now, separate base CPP from CPP2 because they run on different return profiles. The additional CPP layer introduced in 2019 was designed with a full funding structure from day one, meaning contributions and benefits are meant to match on a present value basis. Its long-run real return assumption sits at 3.27%. That is a cleaner deal than base CPP for a young contributor. The base plan carries the legacy cost of paying earlier cohorts more than they put in, and that legacy weighs on every dollar that flows in today. CPP2 does not carry that legacy. A 25-year-old maxing CPP2 contributions today is buying insurance with a return closer to the actuarial break-even, not the below-market rate the base plan delivers. So what is the honest name for this product? It is not a fund. Nobody who understands the terms would call it that. It is insurance with a return. The return is deliberately below what an equity portfolio would deliver, because a chunk of every dollar you contribute is paying for the indexed life annuity feature, the disability coverage, the survivor coverage, and the residual legacy cost of the plan's earlier generations. If you strip out the insurance value and compare pure investment returns, CPP looks weak. If you include the insurance value at market prices, CPP looks fair to somewhat below fair for younger cohorts on the base plan, and roughly fair once the CPP2 layer is factored in. Who should feel good about this deal? Anyone who is behaviorally at risk of blowing up a private portfolio. Anyone whose earnings history includes disability risk or dependence. Anyone who values a floor of guaranteed indexed income that no market crash can touch. The plan does exactly what an insurance product is supposed to do. It transfers risk you cannot bear alone to a pool that can. For that viewer, the terms sheet is not a scandal. It is a bulk-priced package of things you would otherwise buy separately at a premium. Who has a legitimate grievance? Anyone born after 1970, one who runs the pure investment counter math and notices that the older cohorts got a windfall this cohort is partly financing. That grievance is arithmetically correct. The 27% return the 1970s retirees earned was not paid by heaven. It was paid by the higher contribution rate every worker since has shouldered. If CPP looks disappointing on a pure return basis, that is the reason, and it is fair to say so out loud. But here is the final honest word. There is no opt-out. CPP is mandatory for every employed Canadian outside Quebec. This entire exercise is a thought experiment, not a decision. What it should change is not your contribution behavior, because you have no choice but your mental accounting of what CPP is and what it is not. Do not treat it as your primary retirement wealth engine. It was never priced to be that. Treat it as the guaranteed indexed floor beneath your RSP, TFSA, and non-registered portfolio, and build the rest of your retirement on top of it. That framing is honest. Anything else is either overselling the product or underselling the value of what the riders actually deliver. The term sheet, read straight, is not a scandal. It is not a gift either. It is what it always was, a tax with a benefit, price to break even for younger cohorts. Once you honestly cost the insurance features, nobody else will sell you at that price. Would you actually be richer investing it yourself? On a spreadsheet with no employer match forfeited, no annuity replacement paid, no disability or survivor riders bought, and no behavioral drag? Yes. In the real world, with those costs priced in and executed by an actual human across 40 years of market cycles, the honest answer is much closer to a tie than either camp likes to admit.